I'm not an American, you're not an American. You're one of the 22 million black people who are the victims of America. You and I, we've never seen any democracy. We ain't seen no democracy on the cotton fields of Georgia. Wasn't no democracy down there. We didn't see any democracy on the streets of Harlem, in the streets of Brooklyn, in the streets of Detroit, in Chicago. Ain't no democracy down there. No, we've never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare.
In the history of the world, there has not been a people that has destroyed and run down their own people like black people.
As of right now, man, they got us in this corporate entity to believe that we really free. And it goes back to when they first had slaves. They had slaves, was whipping slaves, was oppressing slaves, basically giving them food that they wouldn't even give to their dogs. But then, I think it was Willie Lynch, or it may have been John Hawkins. It was somewhere around that time period. You had the brother like, hold up, y'all need to make them fight amongst each other. So they sat back, go ahead and make the lights against the dark and the fat against the skinny, the ugly against the pretty. And before you know it, we had separation when you had house niggas and you had field niggas. Some women that felt like they was better than the others, and they forgot the struggle that they may have went through yesterday, but being that they didn't have to go through that struggle no more and it didn't apply to them, they was basically on that same attitude: if it don't apply, let it fly. If it ain't me, I don't care.
Cornel West, Bob Herbert of the New York Times said the Obama administration runs from race issues like a thoroughbred bolts out of the starting gate. Is the president too sensitive on race?
No, I think Bob Herbert's absolutely right, and Tavis Smiley and others have been making this point with great insight. I think what you have is you have a PR operation where the White House is reluctant to want to intervene in issues of race. And let us be clear what we're talking about. We're talking about race. This is not just some deodorized discourse. This is a history of black people being terrorized, traumatized, and stigmatized to try to convince black people that we are unworthy to have our poverty addressed, to have our bad schools, our bad education, our unemployment rates, underemployment rates, to keep us scared and intimidated. And this is what is so magnificent about Shirley Shiraz. She is democratic nobility and black royalty. She's an American hero. She's a Christian soldier for justice. Why? Because in the face of terror, in the face of trauma, in the face of being stigmatized, what does she do? Like Martin King, like Fannie Lou Hamer. I will love my way through this darkness by promoting justice, not revenge. That's a great legacy of black people. As we see brown people trying to do the same thing in Arizona in the face of America turning away. Now, we've made great progress. Barack Obama's one example of that. But he's caught in the middle. Brother Dyson is right about this. He's caught in the middle. He got a PR operation on the one hand, not wanting to engage in the other. And I would say to my dear brother Barack Obama, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
And because Obama's in the office does not make this a post-racial era. There are still states right here in the United States who practice and who actually flaunt and bring forth the same concepts as they did back in 1863 when Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. If you think back then, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John W. Booth, and afterwards he waved the dagger at the audience and he shouted the same thing that's on a flag or on a state seal of one of the states right here in the United States. So if you think about that, that means that the thinking has not changed because that the time has changed and because that they've allowed one black man to become president.
The only way you break through this kind of superficial discourse, I think, is all of us acknowledge we have a fallible quest for truth. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. And we don't like to talk about suffering among our poor people of all colors, but especially black poor and red poor. We don't like to talk about the levels of unemployment, the levels of underemployment, the decrepit schools, the disgraceful school systems, and decrepit housing and so forth. Why? Because then we're talking about power, privilege versus poverty, and relative powerlessness. Powerlessness. Powerlessness.